Hello everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer boards, recorder videos, and a tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to the Monday edition of my bi-weekly behind-the-scenes DM-only live stream Crafting Icewind Dale, in which I built, write, and prepare for our next session of Rime of the Frostmaiden. If you are playing characters Valravn, Frey, Celeste, Edmund, or Thimbleweed, get out of here. You are not welcome, but the rest of you are welcome. Warning, there will be spoilers. Stream our D&D sessions live on YouTube every Friday evening. Watch all of our D&D sessions and reviews here on YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter at Rogue Watson. Join our official Discord server. Invite link into the description below. If you'd like to support the channel, please check out patreon.com/Rogue Watson. For our campaign, we use Roll20.net. For streaming, I use Open Broadcaster software with Streamlabs. Hope everybody had a glorious Monday. Hello, Sylvan, Nick at work, Pythagoras, Nate, Stan. Turn the music off now. So we have made it through the Dark Duchess. I don't usually do much of a post-mortem in these craftings, because it's kind of what the Frostside chat is for. But that fucking giant encounter, oh my goodness. You just don't prepare for, I guess, the social solution to when you want to force a fight, but sometimes you just kind of, you gotta feel, you gotta read the room. I think DM is the ultimate reading of the room. Role. That's probably the best thing that you can learn, and the difficult thing is you can be a great DM and really know how to read the room, but maybe not know your players, and thus that becomes a tricky thing to do. But I think I read the room correctly there, and we moved on from the dragon or from the giant fight. But you know what I got to do? I got to keep that giant alive. That dragon will. Why do I keep calling him a dragon? The giant. I got dragons in the mind. The giant will return. Bergomir with the mammoth will return, and I would love for him to return when the players go do Jarlmoot, and then when they exit Jarlmoot, thinking that they've completed this whole thing, and then he comes stomping in on his mammoth and thinking he's going to take down these players who have hopefully not long rested at all in this time. And I mean, he even took hardly any damage, so he's basically just got full health. So I'm looking forward to using him again, and maybe forcing a proper fight this time, and maybe Valravn won't have the charm monster spells anymore if we can suck out another 4th level spell out of him. So for Dark Duchess, we made it into the hold, which is pretty obvious because this place holds a monster in there. My players, you know, they're not the most tactically stealthy party, which I know. You'd think that given one of the few opportunities this party has had to be forewarned about an enemy and be able to plan on how to deal with them, but no, we're just going to go stomping downstairs and roll for initiative. I can roll with that, that's fine. Not only that, but I got a surprise round. If you noticed, I pulled that shit off. I'm like, well, you know what, if you're not being stealthy at all, then that troll's going to notice you're there. But it still ended up being not too bad of a fight. I mean, just one troll, even a powerful troll, and it was a tricky thing about adding the second one, because they beat this one up so quickly that I'm like, do I even want to pull the trigger on the second one, or is it just going to be similarly anticlimactic? But I will mention, even though Frey makes a lot of these fights look easy because she's so good at tanking damage, and what's fascinating here is she ends up losing a lot of hit points in these first couple excursions, and then later on it gets a little trickier. So and something that she mentioned at the end of the last session was like, hey, you guys need to like come and tank and deal with this troll, because she's at literally 30% hit points right now, and nobody else has basically been touched. So maybe that'll color things differently. But I did go ahead and decide to pull the trigger on the second troll, just because whatever. They've hardly been challenged yet, right? Because they've used some spells, but it's mainly just been Frey's hit points. They beat the giant so quickly. That hardly softened him up at all. I kind of wussed out on making him go through the gauntlet I had prepared for the ice flows and stuff. They just, and when I was planning on it, I was thinking it was going to be a fun, interesting thing, but they just didn't really, we weren't feeling it. I guess when we were doing it, it just became more of a tedious thing, so I quickly scrapped that and just said, okay, once you guys do one check, we'll move on and make it a Dark Duchess. And now, we made it through the first ice troll fight with, I wasn't going to say nary a scratch. People did get scratched up quite a bit. Frey certainly got beat up a lot, but I'm thinking this second one will hopefully do some damage. I do the second one. The kobolds aren't a fight. No, they're not. We only have really one more fight in here, which is the Undead Pirate Captain, which this is something we need to discuss. So, we're gonna do this ice troll fight here, and then we've got a. Presumably, the next thing they're gonna do is check out this door. If they don't, the kobolds can obviously come through once they hear things. The kobolds will initially try to fight them, but then will back off. Although, if Frey wants to go in and murder them all, that's perfectly fine as well. My problem is my fears are that the players are gonna immediately start digging through this treasure hoard, because why wouldn't you? And I've mentioned the fact that that's basically the trigger for the dragon appearing, which means we'll have skipped this entire other deck of the Dark Duchess, which sucks. I guess this place is kind of pointless if they already come down here, because it's just kind of some light lore and world building about the kobolds staying here. But if you already meet the kobolds, then that's kind of pointless. I was gonna put like a little bit of minor loot in one of the rooms, but that's about it. And the other bummer is that the captain's thing, which I have the really cool loot in, I think even cooler than what's in the dragon's hoard, which is the bag of tricks, followed by a cool fight that I've prepped, could easily be skipped if the players end up just digging through this treasure hoard. Because once the dragon appears, there is no more exploration of this dungeon. Like, the dragon appears and this entire dungeon suddenly becomes I'm thinking like those Uncharted video games where it's just an escape sequence and you're run at the camera while monsters are coming at you. It's not, the dungeon crawling part of it is ended essentially. But I don't want to have the drag, I don't want to have them just go through the whole treasure hoard and then the drag. There needs to be some kind of tension there. So I think my solution is, first of all, the hoard takes a long time to get through. Each layer takes an hour to get through with a miner's pick, or twice as long using fire. They can sit there with a torch, they can sit there with picks, but they actually literally have to work through this treasure hoard pile. And what I'm gonna do is, if some people want to do that, I'll be like, okay, what are the rest of you doing? Like, so what I'm trying to do is force the players to actually explore this ship, instead of just montaging through them going through the treasure hoard. And I will even say, hey, remember, you guys went down the stairs, but upstairs there were doors up there and everything, and maybe they split the party. Whatever they need to do, they can do, and I would encourage that, simply because I don't want them to just all sit there and stare at this hoard pile like a bunch of hungry dogs looking at a slab of beef while that's being melted and de-thawed. I want them to actually explore the dungeon, because my concern is that once they make it deep enough into this treasure hoard, I kind of have to pull the trigger on the dragon, and at that point they've lost the means to explore the rest of the dungeon. Kobolds can attack the party to defend the hoard. Yeah, they can. And I guess I could look at different kobold stat blocks. I already bumped them up to inventors, but inventors are actually kind of garbage. There was one from Tomb of Beasts that actually has a lot of hit points, but that's actually not a bad idea. Yeah, it's we're kind of following Elder Scrolls rule at some point, where like the whole world scales up with the players. So like, oh, you're not fighting regular kobolds anymore. Like, every kobold is a kobold champion. Trapsmith is the one. That one's got like 30 hit points, doesn't it? Tomb of Beasts, man, the Kobold Press, they know they just increased like everybody's hit points by like 50% or something, just as a baseline. Yeah, 36 hit points each, 14 armor class. Still has pack tactics. And they have the way cooler bombs. They have like fog cloud bombs and like straight up grenades that do like 46 damage. Like, these guys are actually a lot cooler. Stun trap. I used these in Tomb of Annihilation, and the players were able to loot some of these grenades. And they enjoyed that quite a bit. I don't know if I would necessarily give them these. I may just give them more hit points. I think they have the same attacks. Oh, they do have a poison crossbow. That's fancy. It does take time to search the Dragon Horde, right? So the idea being, while they're searching the Dragon Horde, I'm going to be telling them, hey, I'll try to do my best as the DM to encourage that, because I don't have an NPC here to voice what I want them to do, which is, hey, explore the rest of this dungeon, please, like before you make it through this horde too far, and because it will take a while to get through it. I think they can get the first. Is it all? Let's see. Buried under 4 thick translucent layers of ice. So even the first layer is buried under ice, but it's visible. So you actually can't loot anything right off the bat. You have to start melting it or chipping through it, which is gold, and then it's like gold, art objects, and maybe a one-use magical thing, which surely we can find something more interesting than remove curse, because obviously it's used for the Wand of Orcus trap thing, but I'm thinking maybe you can find a... Essentially, I could just replace it with a spell scroll, because I've got unique spell scroll rules that lets anybody use it, but I guess a little statue is also fun. Third layer, I'll replace those. That's the other thing we need to talk about. If you all have good suggestions for different magic item loot that this party would like, I will certainly like to hear that, because this is obviously a great time to do that. I don't want to use the Drift Globe or the Quiver. Probably don't want to use Mithril Armor as well, although the Ranger could use armor. See, who's actually got... So with Edmund making that infused item, those boots, that was his third attuned item. The only person without 3 attuned items is Frey. He's only attuned to the Runic Axe and the Chardalyn Crown. Everybody else has 3 items. Now, some of them, they're not really even using them much and could easily replace them. Like Valravn, I think, is attuned to the Wand of Web. Celeste is unfortunately not using her Psy Crystal really much these days. Thimbleweed, I don't think I've ever seen him use his Pearl of Power. So, like, I could, you know, they could definitely still use some attuned items here. Put the pressure on time for the dragon to arrive. That's going to be tricky. There's... I don't know how to do that, I guess. It specifically says that the kobolds have no idea when she's supposed to return. Obviously, I could change that and say that she'll return any second or whatever. Or she usually comes back in a couple hours. Maybe that tells them how much time they have. And I don't think, you know, it's not like a T-Rex with the boom, boom. You know, she's just flying in the air. So you really wouldn't get much forewarning of when she appears. I'm hoping the tension is just... oh shit, there's a dragon horde here. We just met that dragon earlier. You know, she flew overhead and the bear scattered off, so she's in the area around here, and she could come back at some point. Or the dragon shields. Kobold dragon shields. Oh yeah, by the way, Mordenkainen's... what was that? Multiverse of Monsters got officially added. To Roll20, I believe today. Either today? Maybe today. Which I guess I need to check it out. It feels like it's just kind of a replacement, an updated replacement for Volo's and Mordenkainen's. Mordenkainen's now means 2 different bucks. Kobold Dragon Shield is Dragon Resistance, Heart of the Dragon, Pack Tactics. Multi-attack with a +3. I guess I could force more of this. I mean, this is... I feel like it's going to be such a nothing fight, but who knows? If I get all the attacks right and with Pack Tactics, then maybe these guys do more damage than the trolls. They would probably defend her horde to the death, though. They worship her. There's a really disappointing amount of notes here for the kobolds. 4 Icewind kobolds hide behind the barrels and hurl their javelins at the first creature into the room. After they throw their javelins, the kobolds are weaponless. They worship Aviatrix and do the dragon's bidding. They don't know when she'll return next, but she always does. That's it. So I like the idea of upgrading the kobolds. I was going to put them at inventors, but that might not be good enough. I could do a combination. We could do like 2 dragon shields, a scale sorcerer. We could go real crazy with this. Maybe even put a chieftain in there. Really scale things up a bit. Okay, fuck the chieftain. He's got 82 hit points and 17 AC. He's a straight up boss fight. Bold choice for a CR4 kobold. Full tankard, cloak of billowing, dreadhelm, fingers of wondrous power, ivory goats. No, it doesn't need to summon their own. The thing is, if they get that the bag of tricks, then they have a chance at summoning goats with that. I really want them to get that item, and I really want them to fight that fight because I've got like a custom kind of mini boss there with, you know, undead enemies he summons, and I just think that's a cool opportunity to use undead creatures I haven't had to use a whole lot of. But I need them to get up there and melt that door, uh, and get that treasure and do all that stuff. I'm just gonna prod them the whole time because I mean they've unfortunately just kind of skipped past the area, and me knowing that this dragon's coming and gonna, you know, essentially destroy this dungeon behind them, then I'm not gonna have another chance at it. I want them to try to at least get experience all that stuff. It'd be really interesting if they end up splitting the party with like some of them melting this door and the others melting the horde, and then when they come in and get to that chest that summons all those enemies, that brings the other party up. That'd be pretty interesting. And the party, it's close enough where they could make it in a round, but it would still be, you know, enough to fuck up some of their movement tactics. The bad thing is if I make the kobolds too strong, it's like, well, why didn't you guys just fight the ice troll? But I don't think the trapsmiths are too much. Well, I guess I could just give them more hit points. We could keep the inventor stat block and just give them the trapsmith hit points. That's an easy way to just scale them up a little bit, and maybe the trapsmith's AC also. Because offensive wise, trapsmith might have multi attack. No, it doesn't. Yeah, it's got all these grenades and stun things. I wouldn't let it have those. Because I just don't think it would have had this stuff this far out in the freaking wilderness like this. They do have poisoned crossbows. I don't think it would have that either. Although maybe they would have some kind of, I don't know, what would worshippers of a white dragon have? Kind of a interesting themed weapon. Ice weapons made of ice, maybe? Or just they shot like icicle bolts with a crossbow. These guys have a +5 to hit. Maybe just have it do extra ice damage. An AC 14, hit points 36. That might be the easiest thing to do, and just give them and keep them with. Yeah, we can just give them let's give them a crossbow. Let's give them like a +1 crossbow. Increase the possibilities for mayhem. Something like a totem necklace similar to Storm King's Thunder or Tomb of Annihilation. Way to get them the Reged tribes. Don't remember a totem necklace. Item crossbow. I'm only doing a +1 just because I think it would give them a +5 to hit, which is cool. Yes, it does. Top. Back to the top. Oh, where'd it go? There we go. Pack tactics. Light crossbow +1. I'm not going to call it that though. Call it crossbow. Not have one. I'm kind of like the idea of giving an extra cold damage though. Custom monsters. Does 1d8 piercing damage and then 1d6 cold damage. That could work, right? That comes out to. Oops, I lowered the. +3. 1d8 +3. There we go. That's pretty. An average of 10 damage with a crossbow. You only have the one hit though. I mean, they still probably weren't matched for the troll. Maybe it killed some of the kobolds. I should have had some bodies on the ground or something. Like it killed some of the kobolds, and these are just the survivors. Throwing the flask is still good. Let's go ahead and give him a +5 on that, though. Make all the difference in the world, I'm sure. Alright, this is me scaling up kobolds. AC of 14. I'm just changing the sheet because I can't imagine I'm going to use kobolds again, but who knows. 36 hit points, I think. 6. Damn it, damn it, damn it. X'd out of it. Yeah, I did mention there were bones on the top deck, I think. They didn't really investigate much. (8d6 + 8). I think that's everything. I don't need to put anything else in. Actually putting any, yeah, they have pack tactics, they have the 1 attack. I kind of combined the Kobold Inventor with the Trapsmith. Basically gave it the stats of the Trapsmith, but still give it the attacks of the Inventor. But with kind of the crossbow of... Is it a +2? It needs to be a +5. They can hurl acid. They can shoot their little crossbows with cold bullets. So now, if I were to drag them over, they'd be updated to the new and improved kobolds. Kobold Inventor. I did not get. I guess I need to change the token. Apply to the Kobold Inventor. Oh, that's because your hit points never were tied. I see. That's right. Move that one. Use that one. Save changes. Now it should work. 36. I like doing 4 of them. I think there were 4. Can I roll their hit points? Yes. Okay, that worked. And we can number them. So that's going to be a bigger fight, at least. It'll be... This is another case of... Could very well start off of a fight, but then become a social encounter. Pretty sure kobolds speak common. And the players have dealt with kobolds before in this campaign. Yeah, common and draconic. But, in other words, it could initially be social. You know, where the dragons, the kobolds would be like, oh, thank you, we're here to worship the white worm, whatever. But the second the players start like looting through stuff or getting in the treasure hoard, the kobolds would absolutely turn hostile. And don't know if they... I want the players to be able to even convince the kobolds. I guess if we had fun with it, if they really wanted to like trick them into thinking, no, we're like treasure inspectors or something, because kobolds aren't very smart. So maybe with a really clever social check. But if they do manage to socially defeat the kobolds, then when Aviatris arrives, I think that social contract would probably, unless they're literally magically commanding them, I think it would end. And now, not only do you have to deal with Aviatris here, which is, I'm going to hopefully run as more of an environmental concern, then the kobolds suddenly become combatants on the field. Because if she's around, they would definitely work as her minions. Magic item does bonus cold damage. Yeah. That could be pretty nice. That'd be the kind of thing that I don't think anybody would even necessarily use, but it's kind of a fun thing to have. I think it's just barred, right? They can open it from their side. Of course, Aviatris arriving. The way I'm going to try to time it is hopefully if I can get them, and we've got this fight, we've got the kobolds, we've got the treasure hoard, but while they're trying to get their way through the treasure hoard, I'm going to try to convince them to explore the rest of the dungeon as best I can. So hopefully they do that. We don't just, continue the passage of time. Because I would love to end a session with Aviatris arriving, and then I've got a full session to actually run just that setup and plan for that. Because right now I'm still kind of putting that on the back burner. I keep procrastinating on actually running that event. Let's reread what it actually says in the book. Hunting when the character first arrives at the Dark Duchess, but she checks on the ship regularly to make sure Horde is undisturbed. At the end of each hour, the character is spent in the Dark Duchess. That's 20%. So I did that before. I think last crafting, I actually rolled a bunch of 1d5s and never rolled a 1. 20% chance. Dragon must get close to the ship to examine it. Characters are below deck, then the White Worm arrives. The following box text describes her arrival. I believe she smells and hears the panic of beating hearts. Ready your spells, Melthorond. We have invited guests. Which is pretty cool. And if they're topside, they can actually see it coming. Characters hide and don't make a lot of noise. She climbs aboard the vessel in the forecastle and begins to make her way toward the hold. No matter where the characters are on the ship, they hear Aviatris board it as her massive form makes the entire vessel shake and the ice around it crack. It just says if she notices them, she attacks. She doesn't notice the character. She makes her way to her hoard, inspects the hold to make sure nothing's in place, and leaves the ship to find and eat a tasty walrus. She sees that the hoard has been disturbed. The dragon looks around the ship to see if thieves left tracks and follows any she finds, calling out to Melthorond to ready his spells. She suspects the intruders are still aboard the vessel, but hiding in places she can't reach. She breaks through walls to get at them. How the fuck do they survive this the way it's written? Characters are no match for the dragon. If they need oh, that's right. They can just funk with the saddle. Melthorond's corpse could fall off its saddle. This causes the dragon to break off her attack once to make sure the dead wizard is undamaged. Dragon can't put Melthorond's corpse back in its saddle without help. If there are any kobolds nearby, they can assist. Otherwise, Aviatris promises to break the character's life if they hand the helping hand. Yeah, that just becomes kind of... That really becomes a really tense moment into suddenly kind of a goofy one, which might work well. I've certainly done that several times, and I mean, that's kind of what ended up happening with our first Aviatris encounter, if I'm being honest. We turned a tense moment into kind of a goofy one, but I think it worked out and became memorable. Characters bolt. Aviatris does not pursue them. Red leave Melthorond's side. Once characters beyond her field of vision, the somewhat dim dragon member, she's big enough to scoop up Melthorond with one claw. Does so gently and flies back to her lair atop the Reggae Glacier. Somewhat dim dragon, that's what. So, the DM has that in their back pocket, where if the players are really screwed, you can literally just cinematically trigger Melthorond falling off the saddle. Maybe she tries to grab somebody or something, and then she freaks out and starts looking for that, and that gives the players enough chance to escape. A lot of it depends on where the players are and how they handle the situation. I'm gonna try to plan for maybe a series of events. But I don't want to guide them too much. I kind of want them to try to make those choices and me to react to them. So I'm just going to be, looking at Aviatris's stat block and Maybe if somebody makes a noise or tries to say something and she doesn't recognize them, she'll immediately just do her frost breath in the hold. What I'm anticipating happening is that Valravn pops up and immediately starts buttering her up basically, and using his very superior persuasion skills, which I'm gonna let him play around with that somewhat. But if she will still go over and inspect her horde, and if she notices things are missing, she will get very, very pissed off, and that could be potentially fatal for Valravn for sure. His cocksureness at convincing an ancient white dragon that no, it's fine, we're supposed to be here. Your loot is all okay, I promise. It'll be interesting. I don't want to over prepare too much because I just don't know how the players are going to deal with it, other than I assume I anticipate them trying to solve the situation the same they did before, which is just Valravn using social checks and role playing to get them out of it, which I've said this before last time, but it's different when you meet somebody out in the world and you have a chat versus you find out they just broke into your storage unit and rifled through your belongings and stuffed a bunch of your shit into their pockets. That's going to color her demeanor quite a bit differently, I would think. But I think the best way to do that is to trigger it, as late as possible. Let them get as much out of this dungeon as we can, and hopefully get through a good chunk of this loot. If I can be a little elastic with time, it would be really fun for them to be melting or chipping through that fourth layer when they hear the dragon approaching, and it becomes this tense, oh, can we actually get this last, bit of stuff while the dragon's up on the top. Or maybe even they see the fourth layer, they see a bunch of stuff, they just start it, and then Aviatris appears, and maybe they're like, hey, let's send Valravn up there and distract her while we melt through this horde and get the rest of it. And then I have to, as a DM, be like, oh, is that really going to happen here? Because he's got enough, social checks to be able to do that, but she would still be very concerned about her horde and have all kinds of questions about why he's here and all that. The players realize it is a dragon's horde. Probably not. Well, I don't know. That's a good question. They haven't had a chance to examine it, really, because as soon as they came down, I attacked them with the troll. They may put two and two together pretty quickly. I mentioned with Aviatris that she hunts down ships, specifically in the Sea of Moving Ice. And then the fact that this is a large treasure hoard here. Why is it just hanging out? Why is it encased in ice? I mentioned which this is in the text, there's a crag cat that's just as a frozen statue sitting somewhere. And if they haven't figured all that out by now, obviously the kobolds can just straight up give them that information. They would be pretty forthcoming about who they are and whose place this is, because they'd be like, you need to get the fuck out because Mama's gonna be here soon. I was actually thinking that, Nate. I was thinking for a hot second, at some point, if he's really good at this, but she's still pretty pissed off, I might have to actually sidebar with Chris and be like, look, you're about to be kidnapped by this dragon. She, you infatuated her enough, but too much so that now you've kind of ingratiated yourself, and she will pick you up and fly after her lair, never for you to be seen in this campaign again for a while. How do you feel about that? Because this is where this is going to, unless you've got some other plan of egress or something. A pile of treasure. Dragon seals, you know it's a dragon's. Yeah, I haven't used dragon. I'm using just the kobolds. I mean, kobolds in general, kobolds plus giant treasure hoard. And I guess context clues for what kind of dragon it is. And obviously we're in the frozen north. Everything's frozen. There's an ancient white dragon nearby. So yeah, I have thought of that being a possibility, which is a weird one because it's not I mean, he could be killed. That's always one option, but he wouldn't even be killed at that point. He would just be it would be like King Kong style, in the Empire State Building. She just grabs she grabs Valravn and just flies off to her lair and all right, you've entertained me enough, and I consider this, if you trade yourself for this treasure, then perhaps that will be, a fair trade or something. I could really go really far with this. It would be crazy to pull that off. So it'd be one of those things where I'd have to sidebar with the player and be like, oh, your other option is you guys need to like hightail it and do some other plan, because I'm just gonna tell you right now, like, once this dragon grabs you and flies away, you are totally and completely fucked. there's there's like a fade to black for you in the future. I don't have like a solo session planned where you are escaping from this dragon's lair over in the Reged Glacier with his V-neck. He's not dressed for it. He does have the Ring of Warmth, though, which would probably come in very handy with a white dragon around. Bards do need repercussions. Yeah, you know, that could probably be a whole damn roundtable about how best to handle social checks, how to reward them without making it too overpowered. And I think you always have to look at actual charm spells and see what they do, and make sure that no social check is as good as even the worst kind of spell, in my opinion. Because a spell, like, they're actually spending a resource to do it. Now, the other argument is where role-playing comes into play, and some players are better at that than others. But, like, how does that factor into it? Do you even make a check if your role-playing is so good? Or do you get advantage and all that? It's tough, because I do want to reward players for good role-playing, and obviously for social checks, but it gets harder when you're solving, like, straight-up tricky situations with just, a silver tongue. But on the other hand, a lot of bards and other PCs, that's what they've built that character to do, is to have that super good charisma score and be able to persuade people. But it's to a point, right? Like, it's not a Jedi mind trick. I feel like using Jedi mind trick is the equivalent of using spell slots, like actually like manipulating people, versus being persuasive. You could still persuade people to help. Like, if they were already inclined to do a thing, and then you could push them over the edge. But if it's just straight up manipulating them to do something they wouldn't normally do, then I think that's where I draw the line. But it's tricky, because it's kind of a case by case basis, and I certainly get caught up in role playing a lot. And there's cases where I want an NPC to act a certain way, or I'm leaning towards having a certain outcome happen. And if the players go that way, then I'm way more willing to let it happen without any kind of checks or spells involved. Versus other things, which was like the giant fight, where that one was easier for me to rule on, because at least it required a 4th level spell of Charm Monster involved, and then another player had Speak with Animals still on, that they had cast earlier. So that was a little easier for me to rule that. If it would just somehow had been, Speak with Animals and he's trying to persuade it, then, it probably wouldn't have worked out that way. Another way to get them to the Reged Glacier. We don't need to go there yet. That would be too early. The Reged Glacier is the end game. That's Act 3, and we're still in the early stages of Act 2 at this point. We don't need them. Even though they've got the location of Ithrin, they can't get in there yet. You need the I think I'm gonna keep you need the Codicil of White to get in the glacier. Like, the Codicil will and maybe it's not even a magical thing that cracks the glacier, but maybe it's just, hey, this is a map to a hidden place that was the place that she emerged from. Well, maybe she did like close it behind her, and then she encased that spell in case she ever needed an emergency to get back to Ithrin, and then she kept that in her holy document that's lying in Grimskala. Which I like the idea, now that I'm talking about the other campaign, that maybe that's what Grimskala is like a holy pilgrimage. It's not even necessarily the Frostmaiden's like main seat of power, but it's this holy temple of the Frostmaiden where the Codicil is kept. And it is obviously, temples are where she can rule over and appear from pretty frequently, but that's something that Nass, when she gets to Vaelish Gaunt and updates him on all that, and then together they know, or maybe I have to make another step in the way where somehow they all learn they need that Codicil of White to get into the glacier, to then get into Act 3, and that becomes the final stage of Act 2. First plays, well, Robin is a verbose bard, but another player might play a bard character and only leave it to the rolls, and they're big charisma, so they're actually acting it out. Yeah. Which, that's To be fair, that's part of the game too. Some people they just describe what their character does and roll the dice. That's I think we always like to have role playing, but I certainly understand that not everybody is going to be uh, super comfortable doing that or embodying their character in that way. So you should be able to do roles, but again, at a certain point, there's an argument to be made where I don't. Like charm spells exist for a reason. Like you're not just straight up mind controlling people or necessarily letting them do your bidding right off the bat. Have we given any more thoughts to the kind of items to put in this Dragon Horde? Because as only fair, since I'm scaling everything up, I should also probably scale up the treasure. I think Cloak of Protection does. Can I look up the magic item tables actually? I am. You in your compendium? Oh, you are. Okay. So these are the nice tables from the Dungeon Master's Guide that just include just kind of a sample like treasure table to roll from. It doesn't have it on there. Oh no! I thought I clicked it. Oh, I've got the book in front of me, but I was hoping to be more. Oh, that's a shame. That doesn't do it. It just shows them one at a time. Well, that's less helpful. Donkey or a mule can carry 420. There's probably a joke in there somewhere. Well, I think we can have something that does the equivalent of a limited use spell scroll or a couple things. I like the idea. The one in the book is a scrimshaw figurine of an archer etched with magical script. Functions like a spell scroll of remove curse. I don't think I need to use remove curse. I don't think I'm going to use anything. It's not my macro. Sorry, I'm searching on the compendiums. This is just literally I'm looking at information that you can look up on Roll20. It doesn't appear to have the tables in there. My macros do not have. I don't think I have any macro loot. Oh, are you saying just check the macros for loot tables? Yeah, I could do that. We've got Icewind Dale trinkets. A lot of random encounter tables. I think there's actually a whole lot of treasure. In fact, this isn't even the buttons out of the actual rollable table. That's gonna have the information on there. Mainly encounters and not treasure, unfortunately. Ethrin treasure. Magic goblet charms. This must be from Ethrin as well. Cast a bunch of cantrips. Yay. Rest are the ones I've made. Wand of Wonder feels too much, but I like where your thoughts are. Persuasion check and a charm spells. Persuasion takes time. Charm spells do it instantly. I guess I'm always very lenient on time. Players are rarely in a time constraint, I feel like, in my campaigns. Although we just came off one of the biggest ones, which was the Charlatan Dragon. Removal rods. Haven't had one in this campaign yet, have we? Wondrous items like an RP or use of creativity. Bag of holding. Boy, that would be nice of a bag of holding when you have a treasure pile, isn't it? Yeah, you could go more goop. I do want to have at least one like legitimately good, strong, attunable item, but you're right. I could do some funsies stuff. I mean, hell, like a cloak of protection, like everybody can use that. That's a really useful item. It's not the most interesting item, but straight up +1 AC that anybody can use. What else is there? I don't think potions would be very appropriate to have in a treasure hoard necessarily. Battle of the Cavalier. Filter of Love for Francine. I mean, I could still concoct a magic bow for Thimbleweed, although he's got a lot of Shardlin arrows now, which would solve his magic bow problem because they do count as magical. The arrows count as magical if the bow doesn't. But I think he is the only character, if he's using his bow, that does not have a cool signature magic weapon at this point. Spray's obviously got the axe, Celeste's got the mop, while Robin's got Zardarok's gauntlets, Edmund's got his cyborg arm. We does nothing, so I could probably come up with a some kind of cool bow. There's not really any good bows in the book that I would use, but I like making magic items myself, so I might concoct something there. I don't remember if Edmund has an alchemy jug. I forget which items he's got infused. I think he can make one if he doesn't already have one. Ooh, that good luck stone is pretty good. I'm just flipping through the book now. The good old Dungeon Master's Guide has still got great source of items, although I think we've used half of them by now at least. So many stuff requires attunement. They have a lot of. I mean, they didn't. You know, they still have the Earth Elemental gem they didn't use from the last dungeon. They have that whole Drillbot robot that I think they've all forgotten about at this point. But that's part of the interesting part of giving them items, and is you don't know which ones they're actually going to use, which ones they're going to think are really cool. And one thing they don't need is like traversal stuff. I feel like between Thimbleweed and Frey and Celeste is a monk, they've got all kinds of ways of getting around stuff. Luckstone, just +1 bonus to ability checks and saving throws. That's really good. It does require attunement. Kind of a wondrous item. Sovereign glue. Magical has no string, generates a string of force for its own force arrows. No need for ammunition. Yeah, but we don't do ammunition anyway, so. But it's a cool idea. I mean, I think that's what the quiver is, right? That the quiver is like, yeah, it's endless ammunition. It's like, well, that's not fun because we don't care about ammunition anyway. Let's see. Yeah, you draw extra dimensional. It's a bag of holding for arrows. That's what it is. I guess it doesn't have infinity arrows, but it's dumb. Apartment that can hold all these different arrows. I know that in Storm King's Thunder we played around with being able to draw different magic arrows from a thing. I think Chris did exact because we had a ranger. Raymond played a ranger in that campaign, and I'm pretty sure he had a similar item where he could like do different arrow effect, which is cool because it's like the Hawkeye thing where it's got all the different arrow things, and that's immediately what I think of when I think of like a cool item for rangers. Is like, oh, you've got bow. You basically become the arcane archer, right? Where you've got all the different bows that can do cool stuff, which is cool. But I think we've kind of already done that. I also gave them that oil of etherealness. They haven't used any of their items from the last one, the last dungeon. I don't know if we're gonna do Black Cabin. Jury's still out on that one. I like the map. I don't like anything there. If I do it, it would be similar to Yarlmoot, where it's like it's not a predetermined quest. It's something you kind of stumble on almost. Because as written, this thing is the quiver. That's a non-attunable magic item. The Drift Globe, I believe, is non-attunable. Mithril Armor is not attunable. And it's got a fake Wand of Orcus. Is dumb. Does emit magical light, comparable to that created by a continual flame spell. I need to make that stuff better. I don't want to go nuts with it, but there should be some better things. Talisman of Ultimate Evil. The only weapon would be a bow. I think the rest could be defensive stuff or wondrous items. I did not let them get the ointment, Eoctum's ointment, which the giant had, because they did not actually defeat the giant, nor did he actually really surrender to them. Oh, and they will be able to get the ice troll hearts. We talked about that last time too. Which I think it's great, like that we temporarily go freaking monster hunter here. Actually have like specific monster loot that the players can grab. You can either eat this fucking thing to gain like troll regeneration. It's not quite as good, 5 hit points, but for 24 hours you constantly regain 5 hit points. You're always at max health of the next 24 hours until you're in combat, and then you have to, you know, figure it out. As long as you're not taking acid or fire damage. Or you can bury it and summon a blizzard for 8 hours, which is weird. Or, I'm skipping the hag thing, or a creature proficient with alchemist supplies, which I assume Edmund is because he's a fucking alchemist artificer, can basically create 1 potion of cold resistance in an hour. That's pretty cool. And I think I'm just going to ignore the blizzard one, because how the fuck would they even know that? But maybe if they roll good enough on either I would, maybe something about Frey being this weird cursed cannibal, maybe she would be able to tell that it holds great power. It's like her eating, it's like the Game of Thrones, like eating of the dragon heart or something. So I don't know, maybe she would just know that if she consumes this thing, she could gain great power. Only for the next 24 hours, though. Or you could give it to Edmund, and he could make potions of cold resistance, which would be pretty damn good in this particular campaign. I know, yeah. I mean, the region, like, that's huge. 5 hit, and it never goes with, like, 5 hit points. Basically, you want to do that at the start of a dungeon, and then as long as you don't long rest, you automatically heal to full hit points after every fight. That's real good. So I plan on fully giving them these, basically 2 ice troll hearts. And I'm tempted to just give them the information, because I think that's a cool item for them to use. I would probably not say they even have to use it in the next 24 hours. Just because of the environment they're in. They're already in a perfect ice troll environment. If they were, you know, in a non-cold environment, then I would probably say, yeah, the ice heart's going to melt and you're not going to get the benefits. But I mean, they're constantly in this weather. I'm okay with them just hanging on to these items. And then you've got I mean, 2. You're gonna have 2 ice troll hearts. You could potentially just have 2 of them to get that 24-hour regen. That's enormous. So that alone is probably the better than anything I can concoct with out of the Dragon Horde pile. Yeah, I guess I could leave it to a skill check. It would be like history or nature or medicine, something along those lines. Maybe with advantage. And maybe I would tease the fact, I would probably tell them like something, you think something would happen. You know, like, hey, this is a magic item. Maybe you just don't get all the information. If you don't roll well enough on the check, I could do it like that. I really, really want them to explore up here. Ideally, while they're picking through the Dragon Horde here. And maybe they do end up just fighting these kobolds. I'm going to put them down, which is fine. And then they would have, at their leisure, be able to sift through this gold pile, but it does take a lot of time. And hopefully I can do a meanwhile. You know, y'all had different areas up here you could explore, and then there was another frozen room here, and it looks like basically I'll just hint to the fact that maybe it's even been picked apart a little bit, you know, because it's just frozen solid. So maybe the kobolds have been trying to like get in there slowly, which is weird that the kobolds live here and they haven't been able to get inside, even though it's frozen shut. Like, you wouldn't think that would stop them, but maybe they consider that like a sacred room. Be frozen for a reason. The Fountainhead random. Oh, and Prince of the Apocalypse. Oh man, you're an ooze. Oh no, the random, that fountain, that was I think you're talking about the one from Tomb of Annihilation. We have a lot of fun with fountains, don't we? Where the first person, I think, drank it and healed, and like everybody else, something bad happened. Those are always so funny because the players just don't know, but you're just so fucking curious. Like, how can you not? And if I was playing a video game, like, obviously we're all quick saving, you know, before you drink from the fucking random bullshit fountain. But you can't do that in D&D. You gotta just accept the consequences as they come, and end up with whatever crazy result it is. Like, hey, just roll on the thing, and that's what happens. I need to include a, you know what I should do? At least, maybe when we get to Ethrin, I'll include a fountain somewhere, and have that be just a random wild magic fountain or something, where something bad has to happen, and then it'll be like it's almost a trademark thing with our campaigns, or with mine, I guess, at least. Fountain of very bad things, very random things. Loot is fun. Types of the sewers. All for the swarm of rats. Wow. That's interesting. Ooh, you know what? These necklaces would be very good too. Like, periaptive health, proof against poison, wound closure. All those would make for good Dragon Horde stuff too. Immune to poisoned condition and have an immunity to poison damage. That's probably gonna come in pretty handy with a lot of stuff. Proof against poison. That's probably cooler than the immune to disease one. Disease doesn't come up too terribly often. Double the number of hit points regains with hit die would be very actually great for Frey. You auto stabilize if you're dying, and you double the number of hit points you restore when you roll for hit die. That's a good one. Statue, it turns you into a snow golem. That's good stuff. Well, I think that's gonna do it for this session of crafting Icewind Dale. I will come up with some cool items and run them by you all this week. And as I mentioned, hopefully we can time it where Aviatris arrives towards the end of the session, but that's something we'll probably talk about next time, is specifically how to handle her arrival, and what will inevitably be Valravn chiming in to try to talk his way out of it, which I think we're all dying to see how that plays out. All right, if you enjoy the content, please check out patreon.com/Rogue Watson. Shouts to Platinum patrons: Joe, Will, Tide Answer, Thomas, Adam, Stan, William, I'm Loud, Kyle, Brandon, Genocider, David, Nebula99, Eclectic, Roleplayer, Roll, James, and Lindsay. Gold patrons: RPG, Papercrafts, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Marcus, Dead Lizard, Lounge, Sam, Lumpy Spuds, Jerome, Nathan, Fast Like a Tortoise, and James. Thank you all very much for your support. We'll see you all for another crafting Icewind Dale on Thursday. Good week.